Hello, I'm Christopher Springman, and you're listening to NephTalk, a podcast series created with nephrologists in mind from Satellite Healthcare, a not-for-profit dialysis provider and clinical researcher with a special focus on home as the industry's home dialysis leader.
It was tough at first. I'm 28 years old. When I currently started dialysis, I was barely 21. So it was hard for me to even accept the fact that I was on dialysis, and being there, it would just kind of not cross my mind as importance. I started just seeing things a lot different. I needed it to survive, in order for me to keep living and keep going on.
That's Jorge Fernandez, who's a Satellite Healthcare dialysis patient, the result of polycystic kidney disease, a genetic disorder, a condition well known to his dietitian, Terri Edelstein, at Satellite Stockton, California Dialysis Center. Jorge and Terri have developed a unique long-term professional and personal relationship, one dedicated to sustaining the best quality of life possible. This is their story. Terri, Jorge, thank you so much for joining us today on NephTalk.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
Terri, you've been a renal dietitian for almost 20 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're currently one of Satellite's lead nephrology dietitians based in Stockton, California, where we reached you today. Tell me, what are the unique challenges that you and your interdisciplinary team face when dealing with a patient like Jorge?
Every patient is different. Every patient that comes to my clinic with end-stage renal disease has a different life story, different habits, different cultures. The interdisciplinary team and I work with the patient and the team to find a diet that will help them feel their best with their disease and also help them live the life they want to lead.
But food is so complicated. I mean, food defines so much of how we live with culture, ethnicity, age, gender, celebration, milestones in our lives. That must be very challenging in and of itself.
Well, I think it probably is. What would you say, Jorge?
Yeah, it is. It's tough.
There are a lot of different factors involved with the diet for kidney disease. Sodium limits, limits on
Fluid intake,
exactly. Different minerals, high protein needs, and all of these need to be balanced. Can't ask people to completely change all of their eating habits just for this disease, but I do try to help them change the important ones.
You met Jorge in January of 2013, and at that point, he had been on hemodialysis for about a year and a half and had a very serious girlfriend who is now his fiancée, Stephanie, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. But you say he stayed pretty busy and was eating a lot of fast food. How did that work out?
Well, fast foods are high in a mineral called phosphorus, and Jorge's nodding here in agreement.
Yeah.
Phosphorus levels were very hard to control, and fast foods are also very high in sodium. Understanding that he was a young man, he's not going to completely forego fast food in his diet. I worked with him to find some better choices. And then we talked also about cooking fresh foods, getting his protein in with other foods that are fresher, don't have as many phosphorus additives and sodium. He did make some changes in that area. I'm sure that wasn't easy.
Well, you also mentioned, too, that during this fast food era, those are my words, that Jorge's appetite had started to decline. So you started him on an over-the-counter high-protein supplement and a daily renal vitamin, in addition to talking about meal planning. But let's talk about the protein supplement and the vitamin. Why is that so important?
Hemodialysis does take out some of the water-soluble vitamins during the treatment, like the B vitamins and vitamin C. And so those need to be replaced. And the best thing to do is to take a B vitamin complex, has all the different B vitamins, B1, B12, B6, all of those. and others. And it also contains vitamin C, which is another water-soluble vitamin. So it's important for the patient to take the vitamin at the end of their treatment or after their treatment.
And to further complicate things, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that as time went by, his muscle mass started to decline.
Mm-hmm.
But during this time, his phosphorus levels began to rise, and he had trouble tolerating
Mm-hmm.
the various phosphorus binders that we tried. What is the relationship between phosphorus levels and phosphorus binders?
Phosphorus is a mineral that we need. It plays a big role in our bones. It's the most prevalent mineral in our bones, along with calcium. Also helps us convert food to energy. And the other part of that equation is a phosphorus binder, which is a medication that is taken with meals or with food that kind of soaks up like a sponge or binds to like a magnet the phosphorus in the food while it's still in the stomach so it doesn't ever get absorbed into the bloodstream and cause problems with bones or with the heart.
Jorge,
Yes.
while all this was happening, were you a good patient?
Somewhat.
He was a good patient.
It was tough at first. I'm 28 years old. When I currently started dialysis, I was barely 21. So it was hard for me to like even accept the fact that I was on dialysis and like being there, it would just kind of not cross my mind as importance. I started just seeing things a lot different. I needed it to survive, in order for me to keep living and keep going on.
It sounds like you've got a lot to live for, including a long and happy relationship with your fiancée, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Who apparently was very, very helpful in helping you adhere to your diet, dialysis, and medication regimens.
Yeah, she is.
How crucial is family support like this to a patient's adherence, Terri, and compliance? In other words, sticking with the program. Because I've heard that when a patient gets dialysis, it's like the whole family is on dialysis.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important. And Jorge's really lucky to have Stephanie and the rest of his family on board. They can help with meal planning, grocery shopping, picking up medications, organizing when they need to be taken, go with him to appointments, be a second set of ears so that if he misses something, they can fill in the blanks. And it's very important to have a support system.
You mentioned, Terri, that the interdisciplinary team, including his kidney doctor, his nephrologist, his dialysis nurse, social worker, and you all talked about how you could combat these related problems, including losing weight and muscle mass, that you came up with a type of nutrition which is given during dialysis and bypasses the GI tract. Can you explain that to me, please?
This therapy is called intradialytic parenteral nutrition. So it's given through the venous line during dialysis, and it's made up of amino acid, which is the building block of protein, and it's got some calories in it as well. Jorge gets a dose of this every time he comes to dialysis, which is pretty much what he needs for the whole day. The thing is, he only gets it at dialysis, so it doesn't provide 100% of his nutrition needs. He still needs to eat, but it gives him a big boost, especially of the protein. And it's helped him, I see signs of muscle mass improving, in his lab results. And also we do our measurement called an anthropometric measurement once a year. And that's also improved since he started on this therapy. And his exercise, that's crucial too.
That must be very exciting, Terri, for you and your team to see that kind of progress and adherence and dedication to the program. This guy has a lot to live for, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
He really does. So we want to do everything.
Does that make a big difference, Jorge? I realize you love Stephanie, and as you said in an article in the Stockton Record, I want a life with Stephanie.
That's correct.
That's a huge motivator, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is. It helps a lot. Like Terri said, all the family has to be involved and stuff. And they've been really great support. For me, this year was really hard when I started getting sick during the beginning of the year. Stephanie was there for me, you know? That's why it's really important when your loved ones are there fully understanding what you're going through.
But life has gotten complicated too. Apparently, while you were being treated at Stanford, doctors diagnosed pulmonary hypertension and outgrowth of your kidney disease. Medication didn't help. And the doctors told you that you would need a heart and lung transplant as well as a new liver and kidney, which you have been actively seeking, especially a donor.
Correct.
The article goes on to say, and this was very touching, returning from that visit, Stephanie cried the entire way back to Stockton, and you were convinced that you're going to die. That must have been quite a drive.
Definitely it was. It was upsetting news. You know, that's what they told us up in Stanford, that I needed all those transplants. It's just basically like a whole new body and everything. So for me to get that kind of news was very like upsetting.
Upsetting.
Understatement.
I can't even imagine how upset I would be, for example.
Yeah, it was pretty tough on me.
However, the good news is on another trip to UCSF, they determined that the heart-lung transplant really wasn't necessary. However, you are very assertively working on finding a donor for a liver, or a portion of a liver at least, and also a kidney. First of all, you have my admiration for that. There are many people who are reluctant to ask friends, fans, followers, folks at their church or at work to be a donor, but apparently you haven't been shy about that. And frankly, I think that's a great idea. You have to be assertive to save your own life.
Yes, of course. You just have to go out there. I mean, like you said, it's your life.
What is it like to ask someone for a kidney or a liver? How do you approach a person? You meet someone at a party and you're wearing a little button that says, I need a kidney and a liver. Are you interested?
I wish it was that easy. No, it's tough. It's a delicate matter to touch because some actually do want to help. They see what people are going through, the struggles and everything, but then there's people that always have that question, what if, in their head. It's a very delicate matter to touch. I've approached mostly family and friends. I do have the ones that actually say, you know what, like, I want to help you. I want to help you live.
Right.
Give me all the information. So we shoot out the information to them and they go from there.
You have redefined the definition of hope and being proactive. Earlier this year, we did a story on Dr. Vanessa Grubbs, who's a nephrologist at the University of California, San Francisco, who fell in love with a fellow on dialysis. And she decided that in order to assure that they could have a long and happy life together, Dr. Grubbs gave him one of her kidneys and documented this entire process in a book entitled Hundreds of Interlaced Fingers. It's very touching, but it's amazing what happens when people stand up and say, yeah, count me in.
Definitely is.
Terri, how does the future look for Jorge, his struggles, his triumphs?
He's very dedicated to getting this kidney and part of a liver to live, and I feel like he will. It feels like a long time, especially to someone so young, but I feel like that's going to happen. He's not shy about getting the word out, and I just feel like it's just a matter of time.
The two of you and Jorge, have been together for some 5 years. That's a long time. What does that relationship mean to you as a medical professional and a lead nephrology dietitian at Satellite Healthcare?
5 years is a long time. So one of the great things about my job is I get to form a relationship with my patients and follow them through things that are happening in their life. I remember when Jorge would refer to Stephanie as his girlfriend, and then all of a sudden he said, I think I'm going to ask her to marry me. And so every time I saw him after that, I said, oh, did you ask yet? So we talk about things other than diet and health, of course. That's a great thing about my job. And it helps me to help them in the way that knowing what's happening in his life helps me to be a better healthcare professional.
What's the best part of your job, Terri? I know you work hard. It's intense work, probably emotionally draining at times, but at the end of the day, What do you feel that you've done really well as a dietitian?
The best part of my job is the people that I work with, the patients especially, and the interdisciplinary team, the social worker, the nurses, the medical director, the doctors that I work with, and just everybody communicating together, getting on the same page. The patient's the most important part of that team, and finding out what their goals are and what their challenges are, and everybody working together to come up with a solution and a plan that will help them live their best life with their kidney disease. That's the best part about my job, being a part of that.
I would like to thank both of you, Terri and Jorge, for joining us today on NephTalk. It's been a great conversation, and I wish both of you well.
Thank you, Chris, for having us.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure.